Princess Isabella had always been the picture of royal perfection. For 28 years she had followed every rule, worn every appropriate dress, and smiled at every public event exactly as the royal handbook demanded. Her dark hair was always styled in the same elegant updo. Her makeup was always subtle and classic, and her wardrobe consisted of pastel colors and conservative cuts that the royal fashion advisors had chosen for her since she was 18. The Kingdom of Valdoria loved their princess, but they also took her for granted. She was reliable, predictable, and safe. At charity events, she wore her signature pearl necklace and spoke in carefully measured words that had been approved by the palace communications team. At state dinners, she smiled politely and made small talk about the weather and local traditions. The press had long ago stopped paying much attention to her because she never did anything unexpected. But behind the palace walls, Princess Isabella was struggling with a growing sense of emptiness. Every morning she would wake up in her grand bedroom and look at herself in the ornate mirror, wondering if this was truly who she was meant to be. The woman staring back at her felt like a stranger wearing a costume that had never quite fit properly. The breaking point came on a rainy Thursday in November. Princess Isabella had just returned from a particularly dreary hospital visit, where she had cut a ribbon for a new children's wing. As she sat in her private sitting room, still wearing her pale blue suit and matching hat, she caught her reflection in the window. The storm outside made the glass dark, and for a moment, she couldn't recognize herself at all. That evening, while scrolling through social media on her personal phone, something she did in secret, Isabella discovered a young artist named Maya Chen, who lived in the capital city. Maya's Instagram account was filled with vibrant self-portraits where she transformed her appearance completely from day to day. One day she had bright purple hair and bold geometric makeup. The next, she wore flowing bohemian clothes with flowers in her natural curls. Maya's bio read simply, "Being yourself isn't a costume you put on, it's a truth you reveal." Princess Isabella found herself staring at Maya's photos for hours. This young woman, probably around 25 years old, seemed to radiate a confidence and authenticity that Isabella had never felt, despite all her royal training. Maya's smile was genuine, not practiced. Her poses were natural, not choreographed. Most importantly, in every single photo, she looked completely comfortable in her own skin. The next morning, instead of allowing her ladies-in-waiting to prepare her usual outfit for a museum opening, Princess Isabella made an unprecedented request. She asked to speak privately with her personal stylist, Elena Rosewood, who had been working with the royal family for over 15 years. Elena was a sophisticated woman in her 40s who had always respected the traditional royal dress code, but Isabella sensed that she might understand her growing frustration. When Elena entered the private dressing room, she found the princess sitting on the edge of her bed, still in her silk pajamas, looking more vulnerable than she had ever seen her. "Elena," Princess Isabella began, her voice trembling slightly, "I need to ask you something, and I need you to be completely honest with me. Do you think I look happy in the photographs from yesterday's event?" Elena studied the princess's face carefully. In all her years of service, no member of the royal family had ever asked her such a personal question. She thought about the official photos from the hospital visit, where Princess Isabella had smiled dutifully at the camera while wearing her conservative suit and sensible shoes. "Your Highness," Elena said slowly, "you looked beautiful and appropriate as always." "That's not what I asked," Isabella replied firmly. "Do I look happy?" Elena took a deep breath. "No, Your Highness. You look tired. You have looked tired for quite some time now." This moment of honesty broke something open inside Princess Isabella. For the first time in years, she felt like someone had seen the real her, the part of herself that she had been hiding behind layers of royal protocol and expectations. "I want to change something," Isabella said quietly. "I'm not sure what yet." but I feel like I'm disappearing inside all of this." She gestured around the room, with its formal portraits and traditional furniture. "I see young women my age living their lives so boldly, and I wonder what it would feel like to make even one choice based on what I actually want instead of what's expected." Elena nodded thoughtfully. "What kind of change are you thinking about, Your Highness?" Princess Isabella stood up and walked to her massive wardrobe, which was filled with nearly identical formal outfits in muted colors. "I don't know yet. Maybe something small to start. But Elena, I need you to promise me something. Whatever I decide to do, I need you to help me do it right. I need someone on my side who understands that being royal doesn't have to mean being invisible." The stylist looked into the princess's eyes and saw a spark of determination that had been missing for years. "I promise, Your Highness. Whatever you decide, we'll make it beautiful." That weekend, Princess Isabella did something she hadn't done since she was a teenager. She took a private car, without any security detail, and drove to the capital city's arts district. She wore dark sunglasses and a simple jacket, blending in with the crowd as she explored galleries and boutiques that she had only seen from behind the windows of official royal motorcades. In a small vintage clothing store, she found a dress that made her heart race. It was deep emerald green, made of flowing silk that moved like water when she touched it. The neckline was slightly lower than anything she had ever worn, and the cut was fitted through the waist before flowing into a graceful skirt. It was elegant but modern, sophisticated but alive with personality. The shop owner, an elderly woman with silver hair and artistic jewelry, noticed Isabella admiring the dress. "That piece has been waiting for the right person," she said warmly. "It has character, you know. It's not for someone who wants to blend into the background." Princess Isabella bought the dress without trying it on, along with a pair of delicate gold earrings that caught the light when they moved. As she drove back to the palace, she felt a mixture of excitement and terror about what she was planning to do. The opportunity came 2 weeks later when the royal family was invited to attend the annual Valdoria Cultural Arts Festival. It was a high-profile event that would be covered by both domestic and international media. Princess Isabella was expected to wear something appropriate and conservative, make brief remarks about the importance of supporting local artists, and pose for the traditional family photos. But as Elena helped her prepare for the event, Princess Isabella made a decision that would change everything. "I want to wear the green dress," she said simply. Elena's eyes widened. "Your Highness, are you certain? The palace approved the pale pink ensemble for tonight's event." Princess Isabella looked at herself in the mirror, imagining how different she might look and feel in the emerald dress. "I've never been more certain of anything in my life." The morning of the Valdoria Cultural Arts Festival, Elena arrived at Princess Isabella's chambers earlier than usual. She found the princess already awake, sitting by the window with a cup of tea, watching the sunrise paint the palace gardens in shades of gold and pink. "Are you ready for this, Your Highness?" Elena asked softly, carrying the garment bag that contained the emerald dress. Princess Isabella turned to her stylist with a smile that Elena had never seen before. It wasn't the practiced, polite smile that she wore for public events. This smile was genuine, nervous, but filled with excitement. "I think I've been ready for this my entire life, Elena. I just didn't know it until now." They spent the next 3 hours creating a completely new version of Princess Isabella. First, Elena worked on her hair, leaving it loose and natural instead of the usual formal updo. She added subtle waves that caught the light and framed the princess's face in a way that made her look younger and more vibrant. The makeup was still elegant, but bolder than usual, with a deeper lip color and eyes that were accentuated to appear larger and more expressive. When it came time for the dress, Princess Isabella felt her heart racing as Elena helped her into the emerald silk. The fabric felt different against her skin than the usual conservative fabrics she wore. It was sensual without being inappropriate, confident without being aggressive. The color made her skin glow and brought out the green flecks in her hazel eyes that no one had ever noticed before. The final touch was the delicate gold earrings she had bought at the vintage shop. As they caught the light from the crystal chandelier in her dressing room, Elena stepped back to look at the complete transformation. "Your Highness," Elena breathed, "you look absolutely radiant." Princess Isabella turned to face the full-length mirror, and for the first time in years, she felt a jolt of recognition. The woman looking back at her was still elegant and royal, but she was also alive, confident, and authentic. This was who she had been hiding underneath all those years of beige suits and pearl necklaces. Downstairs in the palace courtyard, the royal family was gathering for their departure to the arts festival. King Frederick and Queen Margaret were already seated in the main car, discussing the evening's schedule with their private secretary. Princess Isabella's younger brother, Prince Alexander, was checking his phone while waiting for his sister to join them. When Princess Isabella emerged from the palace, every conversation stopped. The palace staff, who had seen her nearly every day for years, stared in complete amazement. The security team had to look twice to confirm that this was indeed the same woman they were assigned to protect. King Frederick stepped out of the car, his expression a mixture of surprise and concern. Queen Margaret followed, her carefully controlled royal composure flickering for just a moment as she took in her daughter's dramatic new appearance. "Isabella," the Queen said carefully, "you look different." Prince Alexander let out a low whistle. "Isabella, you look incredible. When did you become so—" He searched for the right word. "So striking?" Princess Isabella felt a wave of nervousness wash over her, but she forced herself to stand straight and smile confidently. "Thank you, Alexander. I felt like trying something new tonight." King Frederick approached his daughter, studying her appearance with the analytical eye of someone who had spent decades in the public spotlight. "Daughter, you know that tonight's event will be heavily photographed. Are you prepared for the attention this might bring?" "Yes, Father," Princess Isabella replied, her voice steady despite her racing heart. "I'm prepared." The drive to the arts festival venue was unusually quiet. Princess Isabella could feel her family's curious glances, but she focused on the city passing by outside her window. When they arrived at the concert hall, the usual crowd of photographers and journalists was waiting behind the red rope barriers. As the royal family stepped out of their cars, the camera flashes immediately began. But when Princess Isabella emerged, the clicking sound of cameras intensified dramatically. Several photographers lowered their cameras in surprise before quickly raising them again to capture this unexpected moment. "Princess Isabella, over here!" "Your Highness, you look amazing!" "Princess, what inspired your new look?" The shouts from the press were louder and more excited than they had been in years. Princess Isabella waved gracefully to the crowd, but something had fundamentally changed in her demeanor. Instead of the tentative, practiced waves she usually gave, she moved with genuine confidence. She made eye contact with people in the crowd, smiled naturally, and seemed to genuinely enjoy the attention rather than simply enduring it. Inside the concert hall, the reaction was even more dramatic. The Valdoria Cultural Arts Festival attracted the country's most influential artists, politicians, and social figures. As the royal family entered the main reception area, conversations stopped mid-sentence as people turned to stare at Princess Isabella. Maya Chen, the young artist whose Instagram account had first inspired Isabella's transformation, was standing near the champagne table when she saw the princess enter. Maya had been invited to the festival because one of her paintings had been selected for the royal collection. She recognized Princess Isabella immediately, but she couldn't believe this was the same conservative royal figure she had seen in newspapers and magazines. "Oh my goodness," Maya whispered to her friend standing beside her. "That's Princess Isabella, but she looks like a completely different person. She looks like herself, if that makes sense." Across the room, members of the Royal Press Corps were frantically calling their editors. Sarah Mitchell, a journalist who had covered the royal family for over 10 years, found herself speechless as she watched Princess Isabella move through the crowd. "I've never seen her like this," Sarah told her photographer. "She's always been beautiful, but tonight she's magnetic. Look how people are drawn to her. She's not just playing a role anymore." As the evening progressed, Princess Isabella found herself in conversations that were deeper and more meaningful than any she had experienced at royal events. Artists approached her with genuine curiosity about her thoughts on their work. Young women told her how inspired they felt seeing her express herself so boldly. Older attendees mentioned how refreshing it was to see a member of the royal family who seemed so authentic and present. During the official speeches, Princess Isabella was scheduled to give brief remarks about the importance of arts education. But instead of reading the prepared statement that had been written for her, she spoke from her heart about the power of creativity to help people discover their true selves. "Art," she said, her voice carrying clearly through the concert hall, "has the unique ability to help us see beyond the surface of things. It encourages us to ask not just what we see, but what we feel, what we believe, and who we really are underneath the roles we play. Tonight, surrounded by so much beauty and creativity, I'm reminded that authenticity is perhaps the greatest art form of all." The audience responded with an enthusiasm that surprised even Princess Isabella. The applause was longer and more genuine than the polite clapping she usually received. Several people stood, and she could see tears in the eyes of some of the younger artists in the crowd. After the formal program ended, Princess Isabella found herself in an impromptu conversation with Maya Chen. The young artist had approached her during the cocktail reception, and they discovered an immediate connection that transcended their different backgrounds. "Your Highness," Maya said, "I hope this doesn't sound presumptuous, but you seem so much more present tonight than in any photo I've ever seen of you. It's like you're finally letting people see who you really are." Princess Isabella smiled, feeling a warmth spread through her chest. "You know, Maya, a few weeks ago I saw your Instagram account, and it made me realize that I had been hiding behind my title instead of using it as a platform to show young women that it's possible to be both respectful and authentic." As the evening wound down and the royal family prepared to leave, Princess Isabella noticed how different she felt walking back through the crowd. People reached out to shake her hand with genuine enthusiasm. Young girls looked at her with admiration that felt different from the usual polite respect she received. She had given them permission to see her as a real person, and in return, they were responding to her with real warmth. In the car on the way back to the palace, Prince Alexander couldn't contain his excitement. "Isabella, I don't know what's happened to you, but whatever it is, don't change it back. I've never seen people respond to you like that. You were magnetic tonight." Queen Margaret, who had been quietly observing all evening, finally spoke. "Isabella, I must admit that I was concerned when I first saw your appearance tonight. But watching you this evening, seeing how confidently you carried yourself and how genuinely you connected with people, I'm beginning to understand that perhaps we've been underestimating your potential all these years." King Frederick nodded thoughtfully. The press response tonight was unlike anything we've seen in years. They're calling it a royal renaissance, but more importantly, you seemed happier and more confident than I've seen you in a very long time. As they pulled into the palace courtyard, Princess Isabella looked back toward the city lights, knowing that everything had changed. Tomorrow, her photos would be on the front page of newspapers around the world. The conservative, predictable princess that people had taken for granted was gone, replaced by a woman who was just beginning to discover the power of authenticity. The next morning, Princess Isabella woke up to a world that had completely changed overnight. Elena knocked on her door at 7 a.m., carrying a silver tray with tea and a stack of international newspapers and magazines. "Your Highness," Elena said with barely contained excitement, "you're going to want to see these." The headlines were extraordinary. "Royal Renaissance. Princess Isabella's stunning transformation captivates the world. From wallflower to radiant, the new face of modern royalty. Princess Isabella shocks everyone with bold new look." The photos from the previous evening were on front pages from London to Tokyo, showing a confident, radiant woman who bore little resemblance to the subdued princess the world thought they knew. But it wasn't just the fashion choices that had captured global attention. Journalists were writing about her speech, her genuine interactions with artists, and the way she had seemed to come alive before their cameras. Social media was exploding with praise from young women around the world who felt inspired by seeing a royal figure embrace authenticity so boldly. Princess Isabella sat in her silk robe, reading article after article, feeling a mixture of exhilaration and terror. The palace phone had been ringing constantly since dawn, with interview requests from major international publications and television programs that had never shown interest in her before. At 10 a.m., she was summoned to meet with the palace senior staff and communications team. As she walked into the formal conference room, wearing a simple but elegant day dress that she had chosen herself, she could feel the tension in the air. Lord Chancellor William Hartwell, a stern man in his 60s who had served the royal family for over 20 years, stood at the head of the polished mahogany table. Around him sat the communications director, the private secretary, and several other officials who managed the royal family's public image. "Your Highness," Lord Hartwell began formally, "we need to discuss last night's events and their implications for the royal family's public standing." Princess Isabella took her seat at the table, maintaining the confidence she had discovered the previous evening. "Of course, Lord Hartwell, I'm listening." "While the media response has been enthusiastic," he continued, clearly choosing his words carefully, "some members of the council are concerned about the precedent this might set. The royal family has maintained its dignity and respect through careful adherence to traditional standards of appearance and behavior." Communications Director Sarah Pemberton leaned forward. "Your Highness, we've received over 300 interview requests since this morning. The international press is calling it the most significant royal-style moment in a decade. Fashion magazines are requesting exclusive photo shoots. This level of attention is unprecedented for you." Princess Isabella listened carefully, but instead of the anxiety she might have felt a week ago, she felt a growing sense of clarity about what she wanted to say. "Lord Hartwell," she said calmly, "I understand your concerns about tradition and protocol, but I think we need to consider what the public response actually tells us. For the first time in years, people are talking about the royal family with genuine excitement and admiration, not just polite respect." She gestured to the stack of newspapers on the table. "These articles aren't just about a dress or a hairstyle. They're about authenticity, confidence, and the idea that even people in traditional roles can evolve and grow. Isn't that the kind of message we want the royal family to represent?" Private Secretary Margaret Fielding, a thoughtful woman in her 50s, spoke up. "Your Highness makes an excellent point. The palace has received over 1,000 letters and emails this morning from young women expressing how inspired they felt seeing you embrace your personal style while maintaining your dignity and grace. Over the following weeks, Princess Isabella's transformation continued to ripple through both the royal family and the broader culture of Valdoria. Fashion designers who had never considered working with the royal family suddenly found themselves creating pieces specifically for her. Art galleries invited her to opening nights, knowing that her presence would bring attention to emerging artists. Universities requested her as a speaker, interested in her perspective on balancing tradition with personal authenticity. But the most significant changes were happening within Princess Isabella herself. She began working with Elena to develop a signature style that was both appropriate for her royal duties and true to her personality. They created looks that were elegant and sophisticated, but also modern and confident. She experimented with different hairstyles, colors that complemented her skin tone, and accessories that reflected her growing interest in supporting local artisans. Her relationship with her family also evolved. Prince Alexander, who had always been considered the more charismatic of the royal siblings, found himself genuinely admiring his sister's newfound confidence. Queen Margaret began asking for Isabella's advice on modernizing some of the more outdated royal protocols, recognizing that her daughter's instincts about connecting with people were remarkably sharp. Most importantly, King Frederick began giving Princess Isabella more significant responsibilities within the royal duties. Her natural ability to connect authentically with people made her particularly effective at events involving young people, artists, and social causes. The organizations she patroned saw increases in donations and volunteer participation as people felt inspired by her genuine passion for the causes she supported. 6 months after that transformative evening at the Arts Festival, Princess Isabella was invited to give the keynote speech at the International Conference on Women's Leadership. Standing before an audience of influential women from around the world, she spoke about the journey from hiding behind expectations to embracing authentic leadership. For most of my adult life, she shared, I believed that being a good princess meant making myself as inoffensive and invisible as possible. I thought that if I never did anything unexpected, I would never disappoint anyone. But what I discovered is that by trying to be perfect, I was actually failing in the most important way possible. I wasn't giving people permission to see me as a real person, which meant I couldn't form real connections or make a real difference. The audience responded with a standing ovation that lasted several minutes. Women approached her afterward to share how her transformation had inspired them to take risks in their own lives, whether it was starting a business, going back to school, or simply wearing a color they had always wanted to try. Princess Isabella's relationship with Maya Chen, the artist who had unknowingly sparked her transformation, developed into a meaningful friendship. Maya became an unofficial advisor to the princess on contemporary art and culture, helping her stay connected to the creative community that had become so important to her sense of purpose. 1 year after her transformation began, Princess Isabella found herself back in the same vintage clothing store where she had bought the emerald dress. The elderly shop owner recognized her immediately, though she was now accompanied by a small security detail that tried to remain discreet. I knew that dress was waiting for the right person, the shop owner said with a warm smile. Look what you've done with that confidence. You've given permission to so many other women to be themselves more boldly. Princess Isabella purchased several pieces that day, but more importantly, she commissioned the shop owner to help her identify talented local designers who could benefit from royal patronage. She was learning to use her platform not just to express herself, but to lift up others who were also finding their authentic voices. The international press had initially focused on the dramatic visual change, but as time passed, they began to write about the deeper transformation. Princess Isabella had evolved from a figure who generated polite respect to one who inspired genuine admiration and connection. Young girls around the world began to see royal figures differently, understanding that tradition and authenticity could coexist beautifully. Elena, who had played such a crucial role in supporting the princess's transformation, was eventually promoted to Royal Style Director, a newly created position that recognized the importance of helping royal family members express their authentic selves while maintaining appropriate dignity. On the second anniversary of the arts festival that had changed everything, Princess Isabella returned to the same venue for another cultural event. This time, she was not just attending as a representative of the royal family, but as the patron of a new arts education program she had personally developed. As she stood before the mirror in her dressing room, preparing for the evening, she smiled at the reflection of a woman she now recognized completely. She was still every inch a princess, with the grace and elegance that her position required. But she was also undeniably herself, confident in her own skin, comfortable with her own voice, and deeply connected to her sense of purpose. The emerald dress still hung in her wardrobe, carefully preserved as a reminder of the evening when she first chose courage over comfort. But her closet now contained dozens of other pieces that reflected the full spectrum of her personality, each one chosen because it made her feel authentic and powerful. Princess Isabella had discovered that the most shocking thing she could do wasn't to abandon her royal responsibilities, but to fulfill them with complete authenticity. In embracing who she really was, she had become not just a better princess, but a better leader, friend, and role model. The girl who had once hidden behind expectations had become a woman who used her influence to encourage others to step boldly into their own lives. The kingdom of Valdoria had gained more than a transformed princess. They had gained a leader who showed them that growth, authenticity, and tradition could work together to create something beautiful and inspiring. Princess Isabella's journey from invisible to magnetic had taught everyone around her that the most radical thing anyone can do is simply be courageously, authentically themselves.